The school level, if you're emotional, you get sent to a different classroom and you're placed at a seat all alone. They're not leading you, they're pushing you.
Hey, just so you know, bribery is not beneath us for our kids.
That's the beauty of homeschool. Like, if it doesn't start till 11 o'clock that day or 6 p.m. that night, you got it done.
And then I had the free time and I was like, I'm bored out of my ever-loving mind.
You really do struggle with this ideology that we have to recreate public school into the home. And then that's what homeschool looks like.
We are the solution to our children's education because God uniquely equipped and qualified us to understand them.
Public school is the school leads, the curriculum, and the standards. Homeschool, the children lead.
Am I adequate? Am I equipped? I literally think that could be the next conversation.
The level doesn't equate to the grade. The level equates to the information you're now ready for.
Feeling stuck? You're not alone. Welcome to Crazy Unbelievable Faith, the podcast where Brian and Kersha Owen get real about identity, marriage, mental health, and faith in a noisy, disconnected world. Each episode is a breath of fresh air rooted in faith, rich in vulnerability, and filled with hope. Subscribe now and go deeper at crazyunbelievablefaith.com for behind-the-scenes access to the book, podcast, and community. Because God's plan for your life is crazier, deeper, and more beautiful than you could ever imagine.
I want to welcome you guys back to the podcast Crazy Unbelievable Faith. We're your co-hosts, Brian and Kersha Owen. How are you doing today, babe?
Good. How are you?
Good. Spring is in the air, so really excited for our guests that we have today. Do you want to introduce them?
Yes. Today we are hosting Chris and Taylor Decker out of Texas, and we are going to be talking about homeschool.
Riveting. Can't wait.
It's fun.
Can't wait. Exciting.
I love this.
Yeah. So, Chris, Taylor, welcome.
Thank you so much.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing pretty good. I had a little bit of a bumpy start with our kids this morning, but we're here and we're settling in now.
Hey, just so you know, bribery is not beneath us for our kids. Candy is held out, sugar, refined sugar is always the best too. So there's always things you can dangle over them. We bribe our kids. It does happen in our house. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
I feel that.
Oh,
Yes.
Rough-
Sometimes
rough-
we have to do the same occasionally. But
Rough,
yeah.
rough mornings happen in our household from time to time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in our household, if you wake up with a bad attitude, I send you back to bed.
How many times does mom go back to bed?
Probably once a week.
Mom is
That
checking
sounds like
herself.
a plan. I like that plan. I'm going to implement that. I'm going back to bed.
But how do you lead from the front? Like if you wake up with a bad attitude, you got to lead from the front, right?
Right.
Like in so many ways, I think we get stuck in this. We have to like do these things. But that's the beauty of homeschool. Like if it doesn't start till 11 o'clock that day or 6 p.m. that night, like you got it done. Like there's this checklist, right? But I don't know about you, Taylor, but I struggle with I'm former military. And so the military just ingrained in me, like we do this, 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 and this, and it has to go as planned. But I just now, like with homeschool, I'm like, okay, 5 kids do not operate like the military does. Like they haven't been through boot camp. They do not understand what's happening in my brain. So I have to piff that from my brain and insert their brain. And their brain is, how much do I have to get done before I can turn the TV on or before I can go play outside? Or how come we can't do homeschool swim today? Well, because it just doesn't fit in the schedule, type of stuff. So tell me, like, for you, what's like one of your biggest struggles with homeschool?
That's a really good question. I think I to kind of take a leg off of what you said, but I think for me, the biggest thing kind of when we were settling into this idea, because it really kind of sprung from a calling that he really felt first. Um, earlier in the school year, our son was in like a pre-K4 program, like full time. And it was kind of convenient for a little while because I had like broken my wrist. And so I was home with our youngest. And so it was like that felt like, okay, he has somewhere to be and he's stimulated and all that while I'm like, can't really do much. I can't take him to the park. I can't like carry all the stuff that you take when you go to the park and all that stuff. But then slowly it started to kind of like, as I started to get better, it kind of started to feel kind of like empty and kind of, I describe it like I wasn't feeling that sense of virtue in my parenting anymore. Like it felt like he's off somewhere and he's having this whole experience and he's not home with us anymore and we missed him. And Chris would tell me he'd come home from dropping him off and he'd be like, oh, like this is a good program, but like there's just something that doesn't feel right about it for me. And I would kind
Yeah,
of,
I would get back in the car and I'd be weeping after dropping him off.
yeah. And we were kind of a little bit in conflict about it at the beginning because I had kind of swung because in Texas we had some freedoms and some exemptions and some things that we hadn't experienced before we relocated. So the concept of like our kids even getting to go to a full-time school program here was kind of like a whole new buffet for me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I can be the lady who has all this free time." And then I had the free time and I was like, I'm bored out of my ever-loving mind. Like,
Can I share what you said to me?
sure.
Like you wanted to go get coffee and go to TJ Maxx and be with our daughter.
Yeah, I wanted to do kind of like the mom,
It's like errands
like
basically.
the mom on Instagram that you see the other kids at school, and then you take the other kid, and then when that kid goes to that school, then you get your life back, so to speak. And and then I kind of started to sit with that, and it just started to kind of feel icky, like just for me, and so then I started spinning out because it was like, well, I have to recreate everything that he does there. And we have to do all the same things. And he does 45 minutes of letters and he does this. And I just started like spinning out. And then a friend of mine, some of like the community of women that I've kind of found myself in here that homeschool kind of kind of like prompted me spiritually in a way that I was not really prepared for, where it was kind of about like actually like the concept of homeschooling actually has so much more to do with you and your relationship with the Lord as it goes to pertains to then teaching your children that it has to do with like replicating or replacing what they're doing in a traditional school environment. And when I kind of started to like get out of the box of like, oh, I'm just bringing that from the outside into the inside instead of going, oh no, this is really what I want to build on the inside so that my kids can take it outside. That really kind of changed it for me. And then into that part to kind of actually get back to your question, it really started to feel like I had all this pressure. And Chris will tell you, I had this journal and I wrote down, I was like, I'm going to do the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning and we're going to do a devotion and then we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. And Chris is like, okay, honey, he's 4.
Yep.
Like, it were like pre-K, like really simple stuff, like an hour a day. Like, we really,
Let's start with like drawing.
yeah, let's start with
Hey,
like
Right.
coloring,
Right.
How
you
about
know?
how about we start with like lunch and nap time? I
Yeah.
mean, everybody likes that.
Yes, exactly.
I
And
do
so,
want to touch on a
yeah,
couple of things that you had said. I think a big struggle, and I think that this is not just a Taylor and Kersha struggle or a Chris and Brian struggle. I think that this is homeschool across the board. Unless you were raised in a homeschool family, like that you personally were homeschooled, you really do struggle with this ideology that we have to recreate public school into the home. And
right.
then that's what homeschool looks like is we have these blocks and these
Mhm.
sections and these sectors of things. Or it has to be this way, right? Like, and I think that it's really important to the difference between public school and homeschool is public school is the school leads the curriculum and the standards and all of those things, right? But homeschool, the children lead. And there are children that are going to go quicker through material than they go through other material. And then you have other children that go quicker through some material and slower through other material. And then you have children that they get in their own way. Like one of our children, if it's in her own way day, like she's pretty quick at all of her schoolwork. Like she gets it all done. She hammers it out. And she's 8, you know, like I expect some of this, right? She's 8. But if she's in her own way, it turns into an emotional roller coaster with her. And I'm like, girl, go back to bed, take a little rest, like decompress this. It does not have to be done right now. Okay. Decompress this. If we don't get it through it today, we can add it to tomorrow. Like it's okay that we have bad days, right? Like don't misunderstand me. We relish in our bad day, right? Like how can I help you get through the day? But it's not just about like learning to add and subtract and what scientific form is this, you know, like homeschool isn't just about curriculum. And in a lot of the ways that those women were prompting you to be spiritually led through that, I think it's really important too, like not just from a spiritual standpoint, but you're also emotionally leading them through those things and helping them to grasp a hold of their emotions and teaching them that our emotions can't dictate what we do in life. But at the school level, if you're emotional, you get sent to a different classroom and you're placed at a seat all alone and nobody's helping you through that. You know, they're not leading you, they're pushing you. Does that make sense? And I think that that's really important. Like our oldest, she went through public school through 4th grade. And you know, I think it's really like there's a lot of parallels here. 2 really quick ones. We were called to homeschool. I remember we were sitting in church. I heard, I want you to homeschool. Brian heard it. I looked around like, God wants somebody to homeschool.
Someone's doing this. Like,
someone's doing this. That's awesome for them.
cool.
We got home and Brian's like, hey, God told me he wants us to homeschool. And I was like, oh, no. He said that about so-and-so and so-and-so. Like I heard it too. And he was like, because God tells you what other people need to be doing.
Well, she had a little sass, a little attitude. I mean, we've worked through a lot of this, so it's good. Like we're getting there.
But it took me 4 weeks to really like every Sunday, God said, I want you to homeschool. I want you to homeschool. I want you to homeschool. And it was always at church. It was always like just this loud voice, right? And then I was pregnant with twins at the time, so I really didn't want to like take a ton on.
Yeah.
So we did part-day homeschool is how the first year ended up. But then the whole like Chris, you saying having your son in preschool, you know, for part of the year. I remember last January, there was some like weird things happening with a friendship. And we had a couple of snow days, so they didn't go back right at the turn. Our boys went to a preschool, and this was their second year at the preschool. It was my like 2 days a week. I could really just focus on the girls during that time frame, in their homeschool. And something came over me, and I was like, I need to pray about sending the boys back. And I really felt like God saying, no, don't send them back. And I didn't say anything to Brian, and Brian came out of prayer and was like, God said it's not safe for them to go back. And not saying that the preschool wasn't safe. I think it was this friendship was not, it was no longer safe for them in this friendship.
Mhm.
And so I think that, just those parallels of being called to homeschool, it definitely resonates differently when it's something that, like I view these children are God's gift to us.
Mhm.
And so we're to raise them how God wants them raised. And if God says one kid needs to be in public and the other four need to be home,
Mhm.
then that's what you do. He knows them best.
And I
Right.
and I think, Taylor, to your point, your network of people,
Mm-hmm.
that was something that we really leaned on. The church that we attend, we're very blessed. They have, several families have homeschooled. And when we were kind of on that teeter-totter of what do we do, just sitting and kind of getting wisdom from them of what they've done, what they've experienced, I think was helpful. Our
Yeah.
pastor helped us where he's like, listen, you don't eat the elephant all in one bite. You take it a year at a time, like kind of like Kersha was just saying. Like
Yeah.
you don't say, well, all of us are going to do this no matter what. It was
Yeah.
we evaluate it every single year and say, do we go back to public school or do we stay in homeschool? Is it working? Is it not? And
Yeah.
some families, unfortunately have to send back because of outside circumstances. But our
Right.
pastor telling us that was, I think, freeing. But I think the second thing that he shared with us was our calling as parents is to bring our children to know Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said beyond that, and I kind of looked at him, I was like, okay, and then he's like, that's it.
That's
He's like,
it.
when you lead your kids to know the
Right.
Lord, other things are going to fall in place.
Right.
But the leadership piece, the leading them, as Kirsha said at the beginning, um, that coupled with the network, like you were talking about, Taylor, I think that's key, and staying connected to that. Chris,
Mhm.
your point um, of getting in your car and crying, like dropping your kid off. Us imagining our kids going to when we were in public school, how chaotic our house was in the morning. You're
Yes.
getting up and it's like we got to roll. They're kind of groggy waking up and I mean that's a whole nother podcast probably just on like when school should start. But there's
Oh
this
gosh.
this your kids are rolling and it's like you're saying we got to get out the door and you're rushing them and then it's like
Oh,
okay, have a great day, see you.
we see kids like at 6:30 a.m. on the corner here waiting for the school bus.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I'm like, let me backtrack. So you had to wake up at 5?
yeah.
And
Right. Right.
admittedly, we all as a family wake up when the sun rises, and that's about 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We don't use an
Right.
alarm clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most
No, our
peaceful
our kids
wake up
are
season we've ever had.
Ever, ever. There's nothing, I'm convinced that there is nothing more impossible to spike your cortisol levels, which are already high in the morning when you wake up anyway, because it just peaks like that first 45 minutes. And then you add an alarm of even, God bless the iPhone, it's like do 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 do, like it tries to make these like lovely chimes.
But it's supposed to be disruptive.
But it's an alarm. Like it's intended to be disruptive to your sleep pattern. And in my early 20s I had tried one of those apps that like timed when like the best window was to kind of start to try to wake you up or something based on your REM cycles, and it would study and all those things. And like even that, like I would still wake up and I'd be like, what? Like it just still was not the right thing. And
But
so
just
imagine what they're going through too.
but just to that point,
Yeah.
we now have the freedom to pursue what we believe is a more natural rhythm for our family.
Yeah.
Whereas, and for example, we like to just randomly take trips. Like one time, church had ended, and I told Taylor we're going to drive to the beach. Mind you, I'm wearing dress pants. She's wearing a dress. The kid, but you know what? We drove to the beach and we stayed overnight, and we got our feet in the water. So,
Not even a
but
toothbrush.
if we were beholden to a school system, we would have to like ask permission to do that. And I don't want to. Does that make me rebellious? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's awesome, but I think, and also I think it kind of cracks open this sort of long gone assumption that like learning can only happen in the classroom. Like, you know, I mean,
Our
yeah.
boy learns at the grocery store.
I think you can teach anytime. Like I remember even when he was younger, like we would be at the park and there were these like uneven little like wood peg things and like I would say like let's do our letters like A B C D E like we you know what I mean like there are so many different opportunities to teach that's not like sitting down in a room or at the dinner table or wherever you do your schooling. It's when they're at that age they're literally sponges. So it's like everything is a lesson. Everything can be turned into something. Like I have a friend who literally turned making cookies into a math and science lesson for her kids because it was measurement and counting and all the
Yeah.
weight and grams and ounces and all these different things, um which I remember learning in school and remember being like, huh? Like,
Yeah.
there's some kids who just do better with hands-on learning, and our son is very much like he wants to do it himself, and he's very self-led and he's very self-motivated. Like now it's not just like I want to eat the eggs, it's I want to crack the eggs myself and I want to whisk the eggs. And we watched this interesting documentary a couple months ago about how, like, a lot of the kids that are entering, like, the college system now, while academically on paper, they may be
They
thriving,
have no life skills at
they don't
all.
have any life skills and they're still texting their
Yep.
parents, like, how do I do a load of laundry? Or,
Mhm.
like, how do
Yep.
I follow up? Like, one of the things that I will always give my mom accolades about was that when I was growing up, she was like, you're going to come to find out when you're an adult that like life is in the details and it's about learning how to handle the things that connect the things to the next thing, like calling the thing and taking care of that thing and what's the follow-up appointment and all of those types of things that a lot of kids today, like there are people who make reels about it on social media about their kids not knowing like really simple things. And it's like our job is to prepare, like you said, to teach. Discipline is
Mhm.
doesn't just mean like, hey, don't touch that. It's also like teaching them to set them up for success. So it's like homeschool can also be like, we're going to do laundry today.
It's preparing them holistically,
Yes.
not just not just in a sector of
Yeah.
life.
Right.
You know, our kids do a chore every day,
Yep.
and they would do those chores after school anyway. But instead, they're able to sprinkle that chore throughout their day. Like, hey, take 15 minutes and I need you to go unload the dishwasher. Like, that's your one chore. But they also have the freedom to say, hey, mom, like, I really don't understand this concept. Can you explain it to me?
Mm-hmm.
Or I am able to say, you're not understanding it.
Mhm.
Like I can ask follow-up questions from a 30,000 viewpoint that tells me if they understand the concept or not. And then that allows me to know, like, okay, do we need to deviate from our lesson plan? And we dive deeper and drill deeper until you do understand it. Or, hey, okay, we got through that material, but you're really not understanding it. So we're going to find the same material, but maybe from a different publisher
Yeah.
and redo
Yeah.
it. And it doesn't like this is the biggest thing. Like I have a friend, she just started homeschooling like full time this year. And I think I had a friend in my network when we were first homeschooling that said the level doesn't equate to the grade. The level equates to the
Mhm.
information you're now ready for.
Mhm.
And I
So
think
good.
that that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Like in the school system, oh no, you're doing remedial math or remedial reading, right? Here, this is what you're prepared for.
Mhm.
And that's okay. It's okay that they're more prepared or that you're more prepared in other areas. And we really do not allow our children to compare themselves because God made them
Wow.
all differently. And
Yeah.
if they are comparing, it is shut down and it is handled behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because God gifted them their own unique gifts. And I want to flourish those gifts and I to honor them and I want to embrace them for one thing. Taylor, you were talking about your son as a self-learner, like he's really easy. Our twin boys, they'll be 6 this year, so they turned 6 in October, so they're still in that preschool, like pre-kindergarten grade per se, right? If you're gonna put them in a grade, a classification. They know all of their doubles facts. Because they're around that information. So I know our daughters are like, I did not know that at 5. You didn't have access to that information at 5 either, you know? And so just reminding them that when you put yourself in a place of elevating yourself and gaining access to information, you're putting yourself in a place of learning, and that's okay, you know.
I think being a, you know, you mentioned as Taylor, Chris said, being a sponge. Next to you, Taylor. We also need to be a sponge. We need to always be learning ourselves,
right,
and gathering that information, and understanding it's okay if something doesn't work. We back up and let's try something different. Kind of to your point of, if they're not getting the concept. I love how you said the park, like, and using those pieces to do the ABCs. You know, those are powerful things. People talk about, you know, Kirsha talked about the chores. For us, we don't pay for chores. We don't compensate for them. I know one of our mentors had talked about, you know, like, why would you pay your kids to take the trash out unless you want to be a trash person? Like, pay them to read, pay them for initiative to do things. And so when we see initiative in the house, like Kirsha said, if the dishwasher needs to be unloaded, all of a sudden one of them's doing it, they make some money. And it's just like, because to your point, when they're going off to college, the scary part is those life skills, if they don't have them, man, I mean, what is it the saying is, book smarts or street smarts? Like, I would rather have the latter personally.
Same.
And I know I have the street smarts. I'm lacking in the books. That's where I've married an awesome partner. But it's one of those pieces that you have to know how to navigate in society. I remember walking in for my job, and one of the employees was talking about, you know, if you ever want to test a kid and their watch has died, their phone has died, I'll say, yeah, I'll let you go back to class if you can tell me what time that clock says. And it's an analog clock. Kids have no idea how to tell time on an analog clock.
Yep.
It's scary. It's
Can
scary.
I ask you guys a question?
Go for it.
I think this is was a hard question for us to wrestle with, but we're finding our way through, which was organizing, and in the process of organizing work, money, time, and availability to make space for this. How have you guys done it?
It's a great question.
That is a really good question. So
Because I would assume that's the biggest obstacle. That's like the biggest immediate thing that feels like, oh, that's impossible. I'm not going to even try.
I think this is the biggest thing, is getting out of our own way, right? Like, my biggest struggle was trying to take public school and insert it into home, right? Like, it had to be 6 hours a day, which it ends up being more than that when you really look at things through the lens of, okay, they got PE time. The other day I was teaching the kids how to run a lap around the cul-de-sac outside and timing them and racing them. And they kept wanting to do it. And I was like, you guys have been running hard for like 45 minutes. You guys need to take a break. I don't need like an asthma attack out of one of you. Okay. But they were like so into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, our 20-minute recess turned into 45 minutes of hard PE time, like really hard PE time. And so in terms of that, like, how did we make space for it in the beginning? We just,
We worked at our kitchen counter.
That's
where our classroom was the kitchen counter.
Our kitchen table. And really, it was when the twins were sleeping. Kenley was in 1st grade. Faith was preschool. This was the year COVID happened.
Okay.
And Jacelyn was in 5th grade. And so we utilized a program called Gather Around Homeschool at the time, and that covered social studies, science, everything but math. And as much as what I loved that program, I thought that the reading portion that I had to do was a little above grade level. It was geared more towards the high school kids. So we've veered away from that over the years. But I loved what it stood for. I loved everything that it did for me. I could sit down, we could get through that, and then we could get through math, and we could get through reading, and we could get through writing and spelling, and that was great. Like, I think the biggest thing is stop. There are some days where this is the time block that we have. But I think if you go into the week with, okay, these are the things that we need to do. And if it's 20 minutes here and 40 minutes here and 15 minutes over here and another 15, like it all adds up over time, right? Like, and for your son and our boys, an hour at most is really all that they can handle. That's really all that they're doing at a preschool level too, you know?
I think the budget piece that you brought up too, Chris, the time, the money.
Yeah.
Like that is,
I'm sorry.
wouldn't want to miss that. I think people, you start where you are. You know, it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to have a book closet and the whole thing. Like I have to have my rug and a reading nook, and because that's what people think. They want the lighting and like
I wanted that. Yeah.
I wanted that too.
I was an elementary teacher. Like the boards, I never did. Like
I wanted it color coordinated.
Anyway,
pretty bed. I wanted it to look all, Pinteresty.
If she had a Hobby Lobby card, she'd be there every second. That's scary.
Yeah, the posters,
container store,
container
all the
store
different things. Yeah,
okay,
I love a container.
Putting plugs out for everybody today. But I think it's really the budget piece of it is really you work with what you have. Don't go backwards. You start with things. You work with, I mean, gosh, we have pretzels the other day we were using as counting sticks for our boys. And so it's just you use what you have. Don't go at it like, oh my gosh, I have to have everything perfect. I know there are some OCD people in our family, one right here. But I just go with whatever's there. Like we could play in the dirt and draw numbers in the dirt. I would be fine with it. Like, I'm caveman kind of thing.
Do letters with chalk. One thing that our boys really absolutely love, they absolutely love this, a dry erase marker on the window.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Yeah, our son would love that.
They get to write their name on the window, or I will go outside and I will write it backwards, where then they can trace on the inside and practice their name and their handwriting that way. And then they get to spray the window and wipe it down, and it doesn't have to look neat and clean, but they love the whole I get to spray the window? Sure, I'll let you spray the window. Clean it. I don't care. Don't clean it. I'll clean it later. I don't care. Like they get to do more fun, manipulative things than what the classroom, honestly, like Jacelyn, our oldest, she'll be like, I never got to do that. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't get to do that? And they're like, we had an iPad. That's what we got to do it on. And at the time they thought that the iPad was the coolest thing. And I don't know if you've done any research on some of these studies, but they're saying now that too much iPad and screen time is really providing a lot of health challenges to these children, either in their eyesight, in their ability,
so we keep using glasses more and more.
Write things. They really have failed at the handwriting pieces too, over the years. Cursive, like they took cursive out and they brought it back. So, I know.
I think it's one of those pieces, there's so much more to unpack in this.
Totally.
And digging further into questions that you guys have. I know we want to be respectful of your time, for sure. I know you have other things on your schedule. So, are there last minute pieces, questions, comments that you guys have? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Struggles.
I would think at least our we have a shared fear that maybe we're not smart enough, or that, other people are more equipped. And what that's come out as has been spiritual growth and like redeeming our own educational experiences, because I had a polar opposite early educational experience to my wife, where I started out as a latchkey kid very, very young, like in kindergarten, walking to school, bad neighborhood. Um, and just my idea of school and all of these things. And I want to say, but Taylor, don't you see how good we're like providing this thing for our children, this like pristine family love bubble thing? And I look at her frustration and it makes me sad. And I'm like, oh man, how do we navigate this? But like where I've really arrived at is that we are the solution to our children's education because God uniquely equipped and qualified us to understand them. And to provide that way, even if that way is messy and I screw up all the time.
Good.
It's still better than not doing it, is where I'm at. What do you think?
Yeah, like I think a lot of it has a lot more to do with increasing our dependence and our reliance on him, ultimately, for him to show us and for him to
Him meaning God.
him meaning God, to again, the sanctification process is
Right.
is
Yeah.
is sometimes feels never ending. But it
Doesn't end.
but it's like it's holy work and it's good work. And I think that, like you said, like he made our kids for a reason. Like there'll be so many times where our son will have so many opinions, so many opinions. And I'll be like, you have a lot of opinions for a 4-year-old.
I think the biggest
And anyway, I'll just be like, oh yeah, but we have a lot of opinions.
I think
So
the
anyway, sorry,
biggest
go ahead.
piece to
No, go.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I wasn't trying to cut you off. Um, the biggest piece to that is, Chris, you said that maybe you aren't smart enough to do it or equipped enough. However you phrase that. I don't think that it is an intelligence thing on our end of how smart or equipped we are to teach our children. I think it's about being as resourceful as you need to teaching your child what they need to do. Like I have one daughter, she uses teaching textbooks and it does all the teaching. It grades all of it for math. And she absolutely loves it. Now, the other two girls, we did the good and the beautiful. And now they're like, no, we want to move to teaching textbooks. And the timing, the timing needed to take place. I found in so many ways, like through Jacelyn's curriculum, she does classical conversations. I've learned way more than about things than I ever remember public school teaching me about stuff, first of all. Second of all, I learned new things. Like I wasn't never exposed to Latin or Shakespeare at the depth that she's been exposed, like her exposure level. So it's been like me learning right alongside with her in some realms, but also like geometry. I'm like, gosh, I can't believe I remember how to do this. It's been 20 years, you know? And so she's like, how do you remember how to do this? I must have been drilled to remember how to do this, you know? And so I think the same thing, like it's just finding the resources, figuring out the answer. Like there are things I have to Google and then I can teach her from that. So,
Our
but yeah.
babysitter is back.
No,
Can you
it's
add anything?
that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's a segue into like a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Is the am I adequate? Am I equipped? I literally think that could be the next conversation.
Am I enough?
Am I enough? If
I was
you
just
guys are
gonna,
open
I
to
was
coming
just
back
gonna,
on,
I was just thinking that, right. There's a
yeah,
that I've always wanted to read and I haven't, but it's like Allie Beth Stuckey. She does a book called like You're Not Enough and It's Okay. Because it's all about how like the Lord is supposed to step in and to kind of without him we wouldn't be, and that's why he sent his son and this whole thing. But yeah, those are some of the questions that I was asking Chris, like, well, what if I'm and that, again, like to his point, like it exposes all of your insecurities and all of your things so that you can sort of like bring that up to the Lord to kind of determine what he wants to reveal to you as you teach your kids. But it's interesting that you said classical conversations because that's actually kind of what we're planning on doing in the fall for our son. So we can chat more about that later.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
it's a really cool
Yeah.
program, and we were really
Yeah.
excited about that one. So yeah, this has been yeah.
I just want to thank you both for coming on. You know, being raw, being authentic with us, that's key for Kirsch and I. I mean, that's who we are too. So I appreciate that.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
same, you
It's
too.
great to have a conversation with you. We will have you both on to dig further into that in a future episode for sure.
That sounds
Yes.
great. We'd love that.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.